Are you sure you're ready for this?
I was born ready for this.
All of us as humans are born with an endurance gene.
We didn't know what we were getting into.
Let's just all go give it hell, man.
They're not going to know what's hit them.
Europe, we're going to win hands down.
I would love to dish out some to the Europeans.
I'm coming for you.
Bring it on, baby.
I woke up the morning of the Collins Cup and I thought, this is one race too many.
If I can beat these guys 5 days after an Ironman, these guys are never going to beat me ever again.
That pleasure from the pain that you put in, it can be a bit sadistic.
I like all the banter and all the talk. Before long, we're gonna have some UFC stuff going down. I mean, getting up and just full-on fighting matches.
The new kids are out there and shouting, but talking it up is easier than actually doing it.
Oh. And Salthouse would have seen that happen right in front of her. They didn't even look at each other.
Welcome to the opening ceremony for the inaugural Collins Cup. Ladies and gentlemen, how good does it feel to say it is finally here? A unique competition in which teams from the US, Europe, and the internationals will do battle to see who rules the sport of triathlon.
Jan, you're the first guy.
The strongest legs in the sport. Yo, 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 Sam Long. We see our own Sam Appleton.
For the next match, Holly Lawrence.
With Sky March.
We're going with Ellie Salthouse.
Lionel Sanders.
Easy one, Sebastian.
Sebastian Kienle to the stage, please.
Andrew Starkowitz.
Daniela Reed Taylor.
With Teresa Adam.
But coming together here at the Collins Cup is a momentous occasion for all these athletes. And they will reflect back on this 5 years from now, 10 years, 15, 20 years, where they'll say, I was in that inaugural event.
We are a group of individuals who have always gone about doing our own thing and sometimes also have the necessity to look after our own interests first. And the PTO has really come in and tried to pull us together, has got some concepts that could really benefit the sport long term.
I think the PTO are doing an amazing job of bringing all the distances of triathlon together. I mean, they invited people from the short course, from the half distance, and then obviously the longer course races as well. So I think the PTO, through the Collins Cup, are giving all the triathletes an opportunity to not only earn financially, but also to get the exposure that our sport deserves and the athletes in our sport deserve as well.
All great sports have these kind of major events, and that's kind of the vision, is to create these professional level major events, Collins Cup being one of them.
The Collins Cup was my 6th race in 32 days, and I just come off of the Olympics and then my first 70.3 and then 2 WTS races, including the grand final. I woke up the morning of the Collins Cup and I thought, first of all, I could go back to bed, but second of all, I thought, okay, this is one race too many. I had nothing to lose. It's almost tougher for her, because expectations-wise, she's expected to win, and if she doesn't, then that's kind of a disappointment. So it's almost easier to be paired with Danielle, but in some ways, and it's also awesome because like, just to see how she operates and races and to put yourself up against that, it's great because you can see how good you are.
And there we go. The start of the inaugural Collins Cup is on the way, and this one has some incredible athletes in it. Daniela Riff, one of the greatest we've ever seen to do the middle distance in Ironman racing. Teresa Adam and Taylor Knibb. What an incredible start this is, and incredible athletes. This one is a matchup we've all been waiting to see. Can Taylor Knibb and Teresa Adam keep up with arguably one of the greatest we've ever seen, Daniela Riff?
Oh, Vicky, just nearest camera here, we've got Daniela Riff. Now, she has never been beaten this season yet, so that's a pretty good card to have, isn't it?
Daniela's very rarely been beaten in about the last 5 seasons, I think. So she really does have everybody chasing her. She's a marked woman, but we've already seen here in that red cap, Taylor Knibb of the USA, starting to stretch away from both Teresa Adam and Daniela Riff.
Well, I feel like the explosive start is always relative, but also it's kind of, that's how I'm used to racing. In short course racing, it's not like you can build into a race, like the race will be up the road. So maybe I went out a bit too hard.
We're just seeing Taylor climb out, get a handle on those stairs on the way out. At least you can use the railing, right? So that makes it a little bit easier. You'll see her undo her wetsuit as she runs along, hat and goggles in the hand to just make transition as fast as possible.
I had 3 weeks between Boulder, when I got the captain's pick, and the Collins Cup. And in those 3 weeks, I finally figured out that I was allowed to race Collins Cup, and it was a good choice to race the Collins Cup. I asked my 2 coaches, and then one of the bike specialists I work with, Iden, and I said, okay, what do you guys think? And they're like, just stick with the road bike. And Iden said, if you can, but don't mess with the setup. I used to have a coach who would say, like, if you get to the halfway point of a race and you are not sure if you can continue at that pace, you've probably gone out just perfectly. Because if you know you can build and get stronger, you went out too easy. If you know you can't hold that, you went out too hard. But if you're not sure, then that's kind of the special zone, because you can test limits and kind of see how much you have. But that might be for shorter racing. It might not apply to this length. That was like for a 6K cross-country race, like a 20-minute race. But, so maybe don't take that advice. I'll clarify.
There's the youngest woman in the race, 14 minutes.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, you know, we know that Daniela Riff is now moving herself up into second place, so showing that, you know, even when she's not feeling well, she doesn't give up. I mean, that's why you are a multiple world champion.
Exactly.
But everyone's going to be looking at this woman saying, unbelievable.
Well, this woman, to her credit, yes, there's some physical ability there, obviously. Last year I spoke to her. I got a call and said, Greg, I just wanted, could I have an hour call with you? I said, oh yeah, I'll talk to her. Had a long conversation with her. Went back home to my wife, Laura, and said, this woman is the real deal.
Yep.
She is doing everything she can to become the greatest. And I think at 23, we're just getting a quick little snapshot of what we're going to see in the future.
To have that maturity at 23 years of age, I mean, that's scary.
Well, I was relieved to get to the finish line and just be done. Near the end, I was like, well, this needs to be over. I was grateful to get there. I was almost like a little bit disappointed that I didn't get to race the other women in my race more. Just like get to battle. Like that's fun. That's why we raced. It was a mix of emotions, but I don't think I kind of realized like all that had happened.
It's time for us to make some noise. Here she comes. We thought last week was one of the...
And what was supposed to be a blue wave is turning red in the very first race of the day as the youngest woman led out of the water. There was question marks whether the greatest of all time on the women's side, Daniela Riff, could catch her on the bike. She in fact lost time. Maybe the fastest woman's time of the entire day as USA claims 6. Taylor Knibb comes in across the line with that spectacular 6 points. Wow, it doesn't even look that tired.
What a phenomenal performance.
Going into the Collins Cup, expectations were definitely high. There's been a lot of hype and build-up leading into the event and a lot of unknown around the event as well. And I've never raced as part of a team in triathlon, to be honest, and definitely not part of a team as big as representing a whole continent. I was definitely not having my best day. I was struggling with stomach issues, but because I was part of the team, it just meant I knew I had to give my best. I knew I couldn't pull out, and maybe for my health and well-being, it actually would have been better to pull out.
Going to the transition now, which were all laid out earlier today, of course. Everything is in place. They know exactly where the helmet is.
And there's a few rules in here, Phil. You need to get your wetsuit and your swim goggles and cap into the boxes right next to Katie there. As you see Katie taking her wetsuit off around her feet, which is not easy, and then she'll have to put that into the box. Now, someone like a Katie Zaferes is used to this kind of a rule. This is what they do in the short course and the Olympics to keep a clean transition. Some of our more specific long course athletes aren't used to that, and we could see penalties later on if that occurs.
We're just seeing Lucy Charles have a bit of a fumble there. We firstly saw her sit down to take her wetsuit off, which is definitely not the fastest way of doing it. Then she tried to move her bike before putting her helmet on, which she then corrected herself because she realized she wasn't able to do that. Then have to put the helmet on, collect her bike, and she lost a good 10 to 15 seconds there.
There was absolutely no way I could stop giving everything I had, so I just had to push deeper, keep going, and know that I needed to get as many points for my team as I possibly could.
Here comes the pass, and that's Lucy Charles making her pass right there. And you can see the difference. Katie doesn't really look comfortable in that time trial bike.
No, she doesn't.
And you can see Lucy Charles, you know, she's done this for 180K at the Ironman. It's not an issue for her. The 80 kilometers, she'll feel very comfortable out on that very fast course.
I actually don't really think many words were exchanged. Obviously, it's very different to a normal competition. I may have overtook Daniela, but that had zero impact on my race, my points, my results. Daniela's part of my team. Daniela was clearly having a bad day. I also didn't feel that I was having my best day. Just positive words were exchanged between us, like, just keep going, doing your best, a pat on the back. There wasn't really much said, but we both knew we were just trying to complete the event, I guess.
Lucy Charles-Barclay will get to the finishing line. She will claim the second wave today, and it might be one of the fastest times of the day for sure, as the multiple talented athlete getting the crowd up and pumped.
Oh, it's great.
And she's working her way to the finishing line now, and it'll be the winner of the second match from the European team, Lucy Charles-Barclay, the 27-year-old.
Oh, I love that finish. Good on her. That was fantastic. Getting the crowd involved. My goodness, it doesn't even look like she's had a sweat. What's going on?
What it does look like that she really thoroughly enjoyed herself out there.
She did.
To take that tape felt really good, particularly as I had been struggling out there, and there were times where I thought that it could go completely wrong. Maybe I wouldn't even get any points for my team, but I just managed to stay strong and lap up that crowd running up to the finish line and take the tape for Team Europe.
I feel like on the race course, Holly and I were both very strong, dominant personalities, and we just don't take any. The swim was definitely quite rough between Holly and I. It was quite a battle. We always knew that that would be the case if we drew each other, because Holly and I are very similar in swim ability. We swam side by side the entire way, and every time one of us moved right or left, the other one went with, and there were quite a few blows to the head along the way. I got pushed under the buoy a few times, but it's all part of racing, and I think we both enjoy that.
Do you see them together there? Look at them, just absolutely locked together. Neither of them stepping down. Oh, this is phenomenal racing. I love this.
Side by side. Is there a lot of psyching go on in this situation between two people like this?
Well, I don't know. I would have said that this was not a sensible way to swim,
No,
but
it's not
these two, we last saw them about 5 to 10 minutes ago, and they were in exactly the same position, sort of locked together, drift apart a bit, bash back together again, hit the shoulders against one another, repeat.
Oh,
it seems
great.
like that has been going on for a good 10 minutes now. So
absolutely,
there was a rivalry before they started. They're going to come out the water probably disliking each other even more.
I think going into T1, I actually went to the wrong bike rack, so that was my fault, and it allowed Holly to get a little jump on me heading out onto the bike. Obviously, I just had to keep cool and calm and yeah, just try and sprint and bridge back up to her, which I managed to do within probably the first kilometre of the bike leg. But obviously there was a small moment of panic there when she started to get a little gap. But yeah, all I could do was stay calm, stay focused, and just do what I had to do to get back to her.
As we go out onto the bike course, where the conditions are changing all around the area just now, and it's still unlucky for the women. This is match 4 we're looking at. They've been going a while now, and this is Holly Lawrence after a big battle with Ellie Salthouse. And now, not any way is Ellie Salthouse giving up her chance here. She's still with Lawrence on the bike.
This is one of the great matches we're getting of today with Holly Lawrence and Ellie Salthouse. It's really been entertaining, hasn't it? The fact that neither one of them are giving an inch. They've both taken their turns at the front of this bike. And not to say they're getting much of a draft off each other with the drafting rules, but there is a pacing that you get by sitting behind. You don't have to focus on how hard to push. You just focus on staying close by.
The rain and the cold were the two biggest factors out there, particularly on the bike course.
And Salthouse would have seen that happen right in front of her. They didn't even look at each other.
The crash was really unfortunate for Holly. Obviously, we were riding together and we had swum together, so it was going to be a really good foot match, hopefully coming into T2 together. And then when Holly went down with only a couple of kilometres to go, it was really disappointing to see because we weren't going to get that foot race that we had all been hoping for. I just said, come on, get back on, get back on. I was hoping that nothing was, wrong with her bike or she was injured or anything, and she got back up right in front of me, so I knew that she was physically fine, but I was hoping she was able to get straight back on so that we could hopefully get into T2 within a reasonable distance of one another so that we could hopefully run together, but I think it took her a little longer than expected with her chain off and things like that.
And here we are, Holly Lawrence, who went down quite hard at the end of the bike, is now, look at that determined face.
Yep, and that was a nasty fall.
Do you think Holly Lawrence is up racing if this is not the Collins Cup? If this is, a 70.3 on an average weekend in America?
I don't think so. No. I think she's racing for a team right here.
Yep.
This is not for Holly Lawrence, this is for Team Europe. And she knows that she can't afford to only get 1 point. So she's going to be chasing Sky Munch. She would have an idea where she is. But even more than that, she doesn't want Ellie Salthouse to get max points.
Max points, that's exactly right. I think that's more to the point.
Holly's an impressive racer, so I'm always impressed by the way that she races. And it's not easy to come back from a crash. So I think that's the most impressive part of her day.
And Ellie Salthouse now coming home here for the first 3-pointer and any bonus points available as well.
Ellie Salthouse there has dealt with everything that's been thrown at her really well. She's delighted. You can see how happy she is to bring home that victory for Team International. They weren't predicted to win many races today, and they definitely weren't predicted to win this one. That was on paper Holly Lawrence's race, but Ellie Salthouse has proved fantastic today. She's delivered an upset here, and you can just see there that she's given absolutely everything to bring it home for Team International.
The Collins Cup lived up to the hype and beyond, not only for the athletes, but also for the spectators and those watching. We didn't quite get what we wanted with Holly's crash, so hopefully next year we can be right next to each other going out on that run and tow the run course together and give everybody what they're all waiting for.
Pressure is a privilege, and being the #1 in the world is quite relative. The new kids are out there and shouting, but talking it up is easier than actually doing it. Every time I race now, somebody's trying to have a crack, and it's cool. It's really interesting. You know, you build up a little reputation, and of course, the young kids are coming up and smack talking.
I like all the banter and all the talk, but I tell you, I sit in some of these press conferences with some of these people, and I mean, before long, we're gonna have some UFC stuff going down. I mean, getting up and just full-on fighting matches, I think, because it's hard sometimes to sit there, but it's a great time to be a fan, I'll tell you that much.
Pressure is a privilege, and being the #1 in the world is quite relative. You know, there are plenty of young guns out there who are quite hungry. And to be very honest, I've gone with the approach of winning every race. You know, on the race day, unfortunately, talking it up is easier than actually doing it.
I was really off when I heard the match selection, to be honest. I mean, so it was me, it was Jan Frodeno, and it was Sam Appleton. And it went first, the Team Europe chose Jan, Team USA chose me, and then Team Internationals chose Sam Appleton instead of Lionel Sanders. And then the conditions on race day ended up being even more favorable for them in the fact that it was this big storm, we couldn't see it all, and the two of them were able to work together, not only to swim faster, but also to navigate the course, which we couldn't see at all. And so I really felt I had the cards stacked up against me.
And in we go. Conditions so different from when we had match one, when the women got this Collins Cup underway. You can see the water now, no longer beautiful and glacial. It is choppy out there.
The weather has changed, absolutely incredible. I've just been running out at Phil. It hasn't been much fun. I'm absolutely soaked and freezing cold. It absolutely changed. Look at that, how choppy that is. And that is, look at that gap immediately open. Jan Frodeno and Sam Appleton. And now Sam Long just has to limit that damage.
I was so worried my goggles were going to jump off in the dive, so I immediately botched up the dive. I lost like 10 seconds in the first 30 meters. And then I lost so much time, and my goggles got so fogged up and I couldn't see, and they had a helicopter flying above me, and I was imagining in my head, like, oh, I'm completely off course, and I've ended up down in Bratislava, and you know, 3 miles off the course, and they've got the helicopter circling around me, basically laughing at me on international television, saying, well, here he is, the top American, can't even follow buoys and is lost on course. So I went through a little bit of a depression, but anyways, got out. Had my little 5-second pity party in transition, and then buried myself.
Here comes Jan Frodeno, match number 7, the first of the men out of the swim.
Right behind him, we're going to see Sam Appleton coming into transition as well, just there rounding the corner, so split only by seconds as they came out of the swim. We were thinking that was going to happen. They're both phenomenal swimmers. There's not usually anything to separate them, and we're just seeing that again as Jan tips his helmet up, and all the water that we've seen fall comes right out, so that's going to be a lovely, cold, damp helmet to put on his head right now.
I know, well, at least the rain feels like it's passed.
Yes.
But unfortunately for these guys, their helmets are now bathtubs.
I really got a feedback after the swim that there was some pressure on because Team USA was having a blinder. And of course, that makes it interesting, you know, because on paper, Team Europe was so dominant that really there wasn't much point in going that hard and going and pushing all the way till the end. And that certainly made some fun, and it just gave me a little mental hurdle to really go.
Chelsea had led the swim out, so yeah, I'd been on someone's feet. They saved a little bit of energy there in the swim.
this is the first matchup we've seen all three women come out of the water together. So not only are we going to have two of them go through the bulk cam together and come into that transition zone really close to one another in the same way we see in that shorter distance racing, we've got all three of them as they stumble to get out over the banks of the Danube and up those steps.
Well, I think Chelsea will be able to say for the first time in her career she led out of the water. Well, I think Simon Whitfield and Lisa Bentley will breathe a little easier as they see Sarah Crowley coming out of the water. It's the first time of the first 5 events that their athlete has come quite close out. They've been about 2+ minutes down almost all of their swimmers so far.
And Sarah's definitely in a lot better form. She had a bit of a slow start, and it's taken a little while to get her form back that we saw, obviously, from the last Ironman World Championships in Kona, where she was finished in 3rd place. But she's slowly but surely made her way back to good form, and I'm expecting to see big things from Sarah today.
Well, it's Emma Plant-Brown just coming through, the 32-year-old, lives in South Africa, but grew up in the UK, and boy, has she been on fire this year, hasn't she? The 70.3 races, that just knocking them off, and you must have seen this over your career when somebody gets into that perfect situation.
Yep.
It's almost like they just expect to keep winning.
And you can definitely tell that Emma Plant-Brown is in her, well and truly in her groove. Latest win at Escape from Alcatraz, where she ran down Holly Lawrence, so one of her teammates.
There was a lot of strategy then involved there, and I knew Chelsea was a good runner, and I think me and Sarah decided we'd go hard out on the bike. We'd switch lead a couple of times and try to really kind of drill the bike.
Emma Plant-Brown continues to lead as she has put her European team in a solid position, but Chelsea Sodaro not far behind.
I love that kind of race when there's only 3 of you, to be like around each other. It really edges you on and pushes that performance. And yeah, Chelsea definitely was giving me no free time. She was hunting down all the time, and I don't think I got any of those bonus time points. So yeah, it was close at the end.
So that's Emma Plant-Brown just crossing the finish line there for match 5. She looked so strong on that run today, so smooth, didn't really put a foot wrong. We haven't seen anyone else behind her. We know Chelsea Sodaro is not that far behind, but Emma didn't give her an inch, didn't give her a chance to get back into the race on that run. So that's another win there for Team Europe.
As an athlete, as any triathlon really, you know, you focus on your own race and trying to do these kind of things. I didn't realize that Emma had won until I had finished. And that kind of course, keeps it more interesting also for the guys going behind me. But I'm sure from an outside perspective and as a viewer as such, that was the breaking point.
There's an awful lot of changes can still happen here. Looking at Jan Frodeno here, he's married to... Oh, now what's happened?
He's overcooked that corner.
The roads are still very glacial.
Yeah, right across that zebra crossing there.
And the white stripes are deadly.
The white stripes, and you just saw that he wobbled across, had to unclip, but he saved it.
Saved himself well.
Saved it, and he's back up and rolling.
You can see he's done that a few times before. Yes. He's a pro at it.
It's never great when it rains, and somehow this year I've had trouble of facing rain at almost every single event. It was no different there, and as per usual when you're out on public roads, the white lines and the paintings on the road generally tend to be very, very slippery. I almost came off at the very end of the bike. Sam came off at the very beginning of the bike. And lots of people had incidents with slipping and crashing. We're all very accustomed to training indoors these days, which is fantastic and very effective. But it is nice that you have some technical element on a completely untechnical course. I mean, the course was as flat as can be, and there were a few turns. But the rain added a technical bit, and I think that's something to be said because, well, in the end, it makes the racing more interesting.
Now, Jan, the man here, has put on 2 seconds since they came through the transition. He's now got a 5-second advantage over Sam Appleton. and you can see the projected points if he can keep it going. He doesn't like getting beaten, Jan, does he? In fact, he doesn't get beaten for the last 2 years, I don't
He
think.
most certainly doesn't like getting beaten, and lucky for him, it doesn't happen very often.
No, it
if
doesn't.
At all.
I would say that right now, I'm not sure we're seeing Jan feeling his absolute best. I think if we're looking at his run form head on here, we can see his shoulders are quite high. He looks a little bit rigid, a little bit tight. I don't think Jan has really relaxed into his running yet. This isn't Jan at his vintage best.
If that was an individual race with 3 people, I probably would have just quit. With it being a team aspect at all, the thought of quitting only lasted for about 5 seconds, and then I still punished myself as hard as I possibly could, because how the scoring went, I immediately focused on, can I get that under 2 minutes? And then when I wasn't gaining, it was still, okay, keep that under 4 minutes. Like, don't lose the maximum amount of points. So the team aspect really kept me in it and got me focused and dialed in.
Something unique to winning in an environment of the best athletes in the world. You know, we're so used to one of us being up and the rest being, you know, sort of content, but really vying for that next spot. And winning together, of course, brings a sense of joy to everybody. And a sense of pride.
I don't think I've seen Jan look like this, not in his face, not visually, just so exhausted.
No. This took
and
it
that
out
he's
of him.
digging so deep. I don't know the last time I've seen him look like this.
Yes, and I think there's maybe a little bit of ego in there, that he wants to have the fastest time of the day, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, and it wouldn't surprise me. He wins everything else and sets records everywhere else. It's probably like,
If it's
that's an
not a
added
record,
bonus.
it's no
but look
good.
at him come in. He's excited now. I think that's now gone from a grimace to a bit more of a smile.
Half
There we
grimace,
go.
half smile. We'll give him a half and half.
That's a
now.
half, but there's still quite a grimace.
Yeah,
that
stick
was
the tongue
almost
out.
a smile. Yes.
Yeah.
Here he comes. What a terrific start for the men's section of the Collins Cup. Remember, this is a team race, and this is again going to be another victory for Europe, as the world #1 ranked athlete crosses the line and he says, wow, I think I'm happy that's over.
Oh, well, congrats, mate. That had to hurt. You know, when you look at somebody like that and you get that moment to stop, you can almost feel his pain, can't you, when you see that?
Yeah.
He is not standing up straight. He's just give me a moment.
You know, I had the 2 Sams, obviously, pre-race asking to face off against me. And in the end, unfortunately, they only faced off against each other. And that's, I guess, the Sam and Sam show. I would have really loved to have seen a closer race.
This was a great experience, probably primarily to see Jan up front and to see how he acts and how he behaves and how he prepares for races and performances. I'm a confident guy, right? I go into races confident. I found myself not even believing that I could beat him, and I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to let that happen. He's just a human being like anyone else, and yet over the course of 6 days, by the time I got on that start line, I basically didn't even believe I could win anymore. And so it was this fascinating process of psychology and this transformative process that's challenged me to think bigger and better in how I prepare and how I view the top guys and ultimately how I'm going to take down the top guys. So it's a needed step for me.
Here comes Gustav Iden. He's got a clear win on his. So he looks magnificent, doesn't he? Doesn't he just look comfortable?
Smooth as anything, and he's just looked like that the entire run every time we've cut back to him. And I do think he's going to put in the fastest run here. I think he's going to be quicker than Jan.
But you got to remember, I mean, we're looking at a guy that won the 70.3 World Championships in 2019, backed it up by winning the PTO Championships in Daytona in 2020. He's winning the big races when it matters at the moment. We are looking at one of the greatest middle distance athletes in the world over the last few years.
For me, the 2 standout performances of the day were Taylor Knibb and Lionel Sanders.
I love racing those guys. I've raced Starkey since day one, literally coming up in the circuit, racing the around Michigan area 70.3s. Starkey was the man. He was the one to beat. That's where I came up. That's where I cut my teeth racing against him. I've had some of my best performances racing against him. And then once I started to get a little better and I started to get on to like the world scene and racing more international competition, then Findlay became kind of a guy who I had, a fair amount of toe-to-toe kind of battles, particularly in Samorin. No one would have faulted me for having a horrible race because I did an Ironman 5 days prior. I liked that challenge. I was like, no offense or anything, but I was like, if I can beat these guys 5 days after an Ironman, these guys are never going to beat me ever again.
Here we are with match 9 with Starkovic now, slight lead over Lionel Sanders. And what an improvement in the swim by Lionel Sanders. I watch his YouTube channel and it's absolutely hilarious. The guy wears his heart in his sleeve and he's been so desperate to improve his swim. And look at that, there we are, Starkovic, slight lead over Lionel Sanders, and we're scanning back.
To try and find Sebastian Kienle. Where is Sebastian Kienle?
Oh my goodness.
That is a big gap. Sebastian Kienle and Lionel Sanders are what I would have considered par swimmers. But Lionel, we know, and as you've alluded to, he's very open about it on his YouTube channel. His swim is something that he's worked so hard on to try and make these improvements. And right now, we're seeing the graphic on screen. He's nearly a minute and a half ahead of Sebastian Kienle.
That's amazing, actually. I'm very, very surprised about that and excited for Lionel Sanders. You like to see somebody who's committed to something to actually see some payoff. I actually thought Andrew Starkovic would have a bigger lead than he's got. So that's the kind of swim Lionel Sanders is having.
Yeah, we were expecting definitely to see Starkovic have a bit bigger lead over Sanders, but at the moment, that's just 8 seconds. This is, we keep saying it, but really impressive from Lionel Sanders and sets him up for his stronger 2 legs, the bike and the run are where he really excels. And if he's only 8 seconds behind now, that sets him up for a really great day.
I think it was the perfect matchup for me. Of course, I would have loved to have gone up against Jan Frodeno and got another shot to go head-to-head. The coaches put me in a race where, I think experience, the fact that I've raced Starkey, the fact that I've raced Kienle so many times, and I know kind of what their strengths and weaknesses are. I kind of know how to get in their head a little bit.
Here we go, the 2 titans, Andrew Starkovic and Lionel Sanders coming out. Now this is a matchup, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is probably Lionel Sanders' greatest ever swim. What a terrific swim to stay there right with Andrew Starkovic. Now the 2 of them, what can they do on the bike together?
Well, this is we expected this performance from Starkovic, and now he's going out on the bike. That's his strong. What's happened there?
He's just dropped his visor, was it? Yeah. So now Lionel Sanders quickly takes the lead.
Sanders doesn't miss a trick. Straight in front. Now they're going out together. Sanders is going to be very pleased with the situation as he moves into the bike ride now. Conditions improving all of the time.
I think that the captains made a very good choice in that selection, and that kind of speaks to one of the big pieces, is who you put against who.
We understand there was a crash.
Oh, there's a bike crash.
Oh.
That's Lionel Sanders down.
That is Sanders down, just as I mentioned that technically he was a little concerned about this one. Oh, he's got a limp.
He's hurt himself.
He lost his bottle as well. You can see Canadian Lionel Sanders from the international team is down. Let's see if he gets his bottle back, because that's the nutrition that you're going to need throughout the course as well.
I felt more shock than anything. Of course, I was worried about, because several people recently had broken their hip from similar, bike crash type experiences. And so I know just from crashing, like when I fractured my sacrum back in 19, I know that, you can fracture something and it not be fully fractured and then exercise through it and then fully fracture it. And so I was admittedly a little bit worried and a little bit in shock. But once I got moving and, then I kind of knew I probably am going to be okay. And then I, took the leash off and bridged the gap to Starkey. It took quite a while. To be honest with you, once again, it didn't change my goal. I'm one of those people who, when adversity hits I become more motivated. So I was like, well, if I can outbike Starkey with a crash, he will never outbike me. And so that was my goal, but he's just really strong. And so I was able to bridge the gap, but I never really could get within 100 meters of him. I was close. The amount of power it would have taken to overtake him would have just been so huge, and I already had to bike really, really hard just to catch back up. I just didn't have it in my legs. So the lesson here is to become a better bike handler and not crash.
There he is, Lionel Sanders now in the transition.
I think what we just saw right at the end of the bike there was Andrew Starkovich actually overshot the turning to come into transition. Lionel was just a couple of seconds behind him, but realised sooner, so was able to double back on himself. So he's actually now in transition ahead of Starkovich. They are side by side, but that has given Sanders just a little bit of a march on Starkey that we weren't expecting to see.
That was a very good spot indeed, Vicky. And in fact, as you can see now, Andrew Starkovich is, he was winning, but the switch was only a couple of seconds in front, and it's now reversed. Yeah, he won't be happy with that. So, but Starkovich is a very strong bike rider, but now it might be a different situation in the run.
And it will be interesting to see if that crash that Lionel Sanders did have on the bike road is going to play a part in the run, as well as we also know that Lionel Sanders is fresh off a full distance Ironman last weekend.
I'm not sure fresh is the right word, Belinda. Yeah, I think he's definitely going to have some tired legs, but you know, Lionel Sanders is not renowned for his running looking aesthetically pleasing, but it is super efficient. Whatever it is he does, it works. And right now we just got this image of him. I wouldn't say it looks too different to normal, so that hopefully means he hasn't been too affected by that crash.
I love to compete. I love to compete on a daily basis. And so it was just fun to compete against them. And don't get me wrong, Sebi was close, and had he caught up to me, we would have been in a war, but I was able to hold him off.
Here he is. He's only got a couple hundred meters to go now, and again, he's not slowing down either.
No.
You know, they all want these bonus splits. They all want these bonus times. And this has been the way the Collins Cup have put this together.
Exactly.
What a great way to do it. That we're not just looking at first, second, third in each race. That they've made it so we're going to make it so you guys race to the finish, every single one of you. And none of them are getting the chance to sit back.
No,
it's
and cruise
almost,
and enjoy that finish line.
No.
I haven't seen one person take it easy across that finish line.
Oh, it's hurting him right to the last corner here as Lionel Sanders comes in. The Colonel's at it again now. He's still suffering, but the tape is just around the corner. And this will be a victory for the international squad.
I really didn't think Lionel would pull off such a performance on the day after his set of races that he has done before. But he has proven himself once again to be one of the greatest 70.3 athletes in the world. And yes, the guy's hungry. The guy is definitely relentless and fearless. You know, he goes in, leaves it all out there, and I take my hat off for that.
I think we performed very well under the circumstances. We had a few hitters who came in injured, unfortunately, and did their very best, and I admire them for that. In the future, though, as we get out of this, I hope, pandemic period, and we get back to, consistent training and some level of normalcy, we are only going to get better, and those problems for us are only going to dissipate.
Daniel Baekkegard has made the pass.
Yes. Overtaken Ben Kanute, in both getting onto the bike, he took off, opened up a big gap, and then was caught by Daniel Baekkegard. Opened up a big gap again at the start of the run with another fast transition. But again, Daniel Baekkegard has come back.
And he looked great, didn't he? Going out onto the run, he looked smooth. He looked like he got into his rhythm really well, whereas Daniel seemed to struggle for that first sort of, kilometre or so that we were watching them. And then as we've gone back to them now, Daniel is full of running and he has passed.
The whole Collins Cup experience, being part of a team for us in Europe, was something very unique, something very new and very fun, to be honest. Obviously, you share the pressure, you share the workload, but at the same time, you're quite happy to exert yourself a little bit more. You're really pushing up for the whole team. Those of us that are having good days, and some of us that are having not so good days. It's an interesting equilibrium that makes for a completely different experience as a racer.
Well, here we go. There's the move from Jackson Laundry.
Now, it was very clear for all of us that it was Europe's race to lose, and it was a long shot for any of us to really be able to contend against them. But particularly, I think on Team International, with the selections, with the actual race selections, I actually feel like we felt that we had a decent shot to give them a run for their money. And I feel like we did do pretty darn good.
I think Team USA just has more ahead of us to keep getting better, and we've got some huge young talent coming up on the women's side and the men's side. They won the first one, but it's going to be a good legacy to go and fight back and get that again. And sorry, Team Internationals, but you guys got the Broken Spokes trophy, not us. So we're still not the worst, so at least that's helpful, Mr. Lionel Sanders.
I look at us as more of like the up-and-comers, and we're all learning our craft and improving regularly. And so I don't see Europe getting any better. I do see us getting much better. I think another year's progression for us, and we give Europe a run for their money next year.
Every athlete is going to develop and grow each year, and I have no doubt that Team Europe could defend our title next year.
It's an event like no other, and I think it is the future of our sport. So to be part of the first one, it's really special because I hope this can continue for many years to come and into the next generation.
If you look at time spans, you see certain nations dominating. It used to be the US, then it was Australia. At the moment, it's Europe. And that's something that's going to change again in a few years' time. And it really will be something I'm looking forward to being a part of as well, in terms of growing our sport, opening it to a wider audience, and really showcasing what triathletes are actually capable of.
I think it's going to be a real turning point because it was a big event that did work and showed that people do love triathlon, and showed that, yeah, there's just so many ways that we can deliver it in a way that it's going to keep growing, and I really do believe this is just the beginning.
It's a bigger platform than we've ever had for our sport to be viewed. It's a different type of event than anything else we've seen before, so it brings in new audiences. There's so much happening that it allows people to watch multiple events happening in one go, which increases their interest, and I think each year it's just going to get better and better and go from strength to strength.
And just to be part of it, you know, I do believe if we continue on this pathway and we continue to do a good job, this is going to be like a staple in triathlon. It's going to be something that everyone looks forward to, spectators, you know, the public, the athletes. You know, when you're coming up through the ranks, it'll be something that you want to, you know, be selected for the team, because it'll be very meaningful. And it was really cool walking in there for the first time and knowing we were part of the inaugural Collins Cup. And, you know, that's something certainly I think when I reflect back on my career, especially as this thing continues to grow and progress, will be one of my fondest memories.
When they reflect back on this race, the first Collins Cup 2021, they're going to realize that it is historical. And they will reflect back on this 5 years from now, 10 years, 15, 20 years, where they'll say, I was in that inaugural event. They're all fighting, they're all rallying, and they're trying to bring out their best on race day. But the history will say, we survived and we did it. The sport has flourished, the Collins Cup has come to fruition, and we're ready to race.